morning. Welcome to Monday Motivator. My name is Paul Tobey. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I do recognize that it is a quote-unquote holiday here in Canada. And for those of you that are joining us from other places, which is possible, US and Australia, we do have members there. Welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about energy. If you received the email that I just sent, it's basically, I've been thinking about this actually this weekend as I'm here in beautiful Prince Edward County. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the area, it's a couple of hours east of Toronto, and it is wine country. So the area has built up a lot of wineries over the year, and as you may or may not be familiar, I'm a bit of a wine lover. So my wife and I enjoy coming to Prince Edward County when we have the odd weekend free. And I did want to talk today about energy, and then we'll be taking a few questions from you. It's a little bit difficult for me to see the phone as the sun is shining and I can barely see, but we needed some light for this thing. But Nancy is there, and if there are any questions, she'll let me know if there's questions, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. So let's talk a little bit about energy. So what I want to do is just go back to not that much further than a few years ago. So this is really recent discovery, or the what energy is and the concept of energy. But before recently, for thousands of years, essentially, and even the early philosophers and inventors and scientists, basically the world was divided into two equal parts. The first part was matter, and the second part was thought. So essentially, the way that we reacted to situations, circumstances, changes in everything, weather patterns, or right through to situations and circumstances with other groups of individuals, we basically had this sort of reactive culture, reactive process. We first observed what was happening, and then we reacted to it. And our reaction was typically based on how do we control something that is out of control, and how do we make sense of what is happening. And essentially, this sort of cause and effect. If something caused a situation or circumstance, the effect was this would happen. And that's the way we saw the universe. It was basically equal parts of matter and thought. And it's not up until recently, in fact, pretty much the 20th century, that we started to learn a little bit more about what are the actual building blocks of the universe, and is it just matter and thought? And so if you look back at the philosophers like Descartes, he basically said, I think, therefore I am. And that was the way we sort of interacted with the universe, was based on that premise. It's like, I'm going to think my way based on what's happening at the moment, and that will cause things to happen if I take action on those items. But again, recently, through scientific discovery and a new age philosophy, coupled with physical proven evidence, we have learned the following: that matter is, or all matter, as a matter of fact, is divided up into molecules. So everything that is matter, including the human body or a piece of wood or a blade of grass, that is constructed of molecules. And that's where the periodic table of elements came from. And we looked at the world from that perspective. It's just these groups of molecules put together to create matter. But if you look closer to matter, or to molecules, what are molecules made up of? And the answer is groups of atoms. And what are then atoms made up of? Atoms are made up of subatomic particles. And if you look closely at subatomic particles, the space between them and the thing that holds the subatomic particles together in groups is essentially pure energy. So what we've learned through scientific evidence and much study is that all matter is made up mostly of energy and 0.0001% particles. The interesting thing, of course, about that is, and you've likely heard me speak about this before, is also in study we've correlated the relationship between thought and emotion and the energy of matter. Because thought and emotions are energy, they seem to have a profound effect on the makeup of matter. And this goes well beyond the concept of I think, therefore I am. It goes into the concept of I project thought and I project feeling, which will then alter matter and energy in everything around us. Without referring to, and I don't have a list, and even if I did, it's too bright here, I wouldn't be able to read it. Without referring to specific studies, it has been shown that a consistent and focused energy of thought and feeling focused on a specific outcome seems to bring about the outcome far more organized than we had originally thought. We thought that outcomes were just random and we would just simply react to them. So, for example, if we're experiencing an earthquake, the only thing that we could do was run for cover. I think that's probably still a good idea. And I'm not suggesting for any moment that we could collectively have an impact on our efforts on... Okay, I think we're back. Sorry, the internet here is a bit spotty, so I apologize if it's in and out. Anyway, I'm here. So what I'm essentially trying to explain is that I have experienced many situations in my life that you can have a profound impact on outcomes if you, with a certain amount of training and self-discipline and focused thought and energy, impact your outcomes quite greatly. That doesn't mean to say that the outcomes must be ordered as you predict. Usually what happens is if you focus your thought and energy patterns on an outcome and leave the details up to the universe, then you are what we call living in a state of detached enthusiasm. I'm completely detached in the way that this comes about, yet I am enthusiastic about the coming about. So let me give you an example. So I'm here in Prince Edward County. Our plan was, and our plan always, Nancy's and my plan for traveling, is never predictable. Many people like to plan and have itineraries, and by the way, any noise you hear in the background is just small ways of getting rid of birds off of the vines, because there's we're in wine country, so there's vines all around us. So if you hear popping noises, they're just trying to get rid of the birds. But for many years, Nancy and I, and many people, again, they travel to the same place all the time. Why? Because it's comfortable. They understand what they're going to get. And in our particular case, even if we're going to the same region, we rarely, if ever, have stayed in the same place twice. And our plan for travel, just like this weekend, was we'll see. But we don't just leave it up to chance. What we do is we interact with our surroundings from a place of, I wonder what we'll get to experience. So this is a thought process and an energy that says, I am open to all possibility. And one specific example of this was we arrived at a winery yesterday called Broken Stone Winery. Why is it called Broken Stone? Because his friends in Toronto said to him before he started the winery, if you start a winery, it's a good way to go stone broke. So he called it Broken Stone Winery, and I actually still don't think it's making money after a few years, but he's a really nice gentleman. His name is Tim. And my son and his girlfriend told us that this would be a good place to go. It's a winery that we had never been to before. So we went, put it in the GPS, and it guided us, and we ended up in the middle of nowhere in this winery, basically in the middle of nowhere in Prince Edward County. And of course there's COVID happening, so there's a check-in process. You got to write your name down for test tracing and all that kind of stuff. And the young lady that serviced us at the entrance basically said, there are no tables now. And it was quite busy, looked busy to me. And she said it'll be a 10, maybe 15-minute wait. And we're like, fine, where can we go sit? So she sends us over to some really nice Muskoka chairs where they were wet from the rain. It wasn't raining at the time. We grabbed some towels. We have nice Hudson's Bay towels. We threw them on there, and there was a guy playing music, which I always seem to attract. There's been music this entire weekend. And we sat there, and as we're sitting there, we see other people come up and be sat down immediately, which would lead one to think that they'd forgotten about us, that the girl who first asked us to sit down basically disappeared and somebody else took over, and she's just now sitting people. So I get up in a very nice way, and I go up to the one gentleman that's sort of standing helping the other girl arrange people in their seats, and I said, I hate to bring this up, but when we checked in, she said that there were no tables available. I can see that there are some now, and you're sitting people before us, and we've been waiting. They said, oh, sorry about that. No worries, no worries. Here's a table right here. Let's sit you down. Let's get you settled. They first gave us a welcome Prosecco, and then we ordered a couple of flights of wine, one red, one mixed. And then after that, I kind of decided on a glass of wine. I had a glass of wine. And we sat there for like a couple hours, just listening to the music, interacting with the people, learning their names. There was Yvonne and Tim and basically the whole crew. And when it came time to pay, they didn't charge us anything because they were concerned that they had in some way put us out or discomforted us by not sitting us down right away. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll buy this. I think we bought close to $100 worth of, wine, and they had olive oil from a cousin that was in Greece, and they send it over or whatever. But my point is that I didn't go into that situation trying to control the outcome. You just sort of expect things to go your way, and things tend to go your way. And the more you get used to this and completely detach from the concept of fairness, because it could seem completely unfair that people are being sat before us, even though we were there first, in even larger groups than us. Or you could take the approach that says, no matter what happens, we'll find our place and we'll end up in the best position for enjoyment, to enjoy the environment, a glass of wine, and the company of other people. I did have a friend once called Joe Burley, who's gone now, bless his soul. If you have good friends, good wine, and good music, you kind of have it all. Now, I think while that may not be all, and it could be a little bit short-sighted in terms of the concept of all, what is all, and who can predict what all is. However, it's a good start. And we've always taken that approach to adventure. let's go on a 3-day adventure, and whatever happens, because we'll expect it to just go our way. We'll expect it to be great. We won't expect to run into trouble. We won't expect problems. We won't be expecting... the worst thing that's happened this weekend is my car got super dirty because of the rain, and there's like dirt roads everywhere. And that's like the worst thing. And there's a simple cure for that. It's called a car wash. Does that make sense? And I'm just wondering, so that's my thought for today. It's like, eventually, as deliberate creators, through this concept of our own personal energy interacting with the energy of all matter or all things, that our outcomes can be progressively sped up by focused thought and energy. So it takes two elements. One, you have to actually think about what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're moving through interaction. And two, what is it you truly want from an emotional standpoint of view? Those two things coupled together create this unstoppable force. And I know that on the cover of this thing, I sent everybody an email and said E equals MC squared. What does that actually mean? I'm not sure if you know, but it's essentially energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. That the concept is mass and energy are completely interchangeable, and one cannot exist without the other. There's an equal part of mass and an equal part of energy. Actually, it's a very small part of mass, which is made up mostly of energy. It's like 0.0001 particles and 99.99999% energy. And that's essentially what E equals MC squared means. It's energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. There's an interchange of mass and energy. And this is relatively new. This is like a 20th century concept. It's not even a concept. It's a proven fact that we as individuals, our energy can interact and cause shifts and organize our outcomes in a somewhat predictable way, yet you have to be detached from the predictability of the outcome. You cannot order the way things happen. You leave the details up to the universe. Are there any questions about this or anything else that you want to discuss? It's a little difficult on my phone to see your questions, so Nancy, and see if there are any. Nancy?
Andrew wants to know, does it work the other way? If you worry about things excessively, do bad things you worry about?
So the answer to Andrew's question, which was, if you do the opposite, such as worry, instead of the enthusiastic approach to a specific outcome, does it have the opposite effect? So for those of you that have thoughts that say this, why does this always happen to me? That's a thought that is consistent in its nature, and therefore the subconscious mind from a position of energy does not have the ability to discern whether it's good for you or not. It just follows the direction of your thought process. What is the biggest thought? Why does this keep happening to me? That's a thought that will be consistently perpetuated from a negative standpoint. So it's laced with two things: an equal amount of thought and an equal amount of negative energy, which will therefore attract more negativity into your life. The trick, if you will, and I think it's more than a trick, it's more like consistent ongoing training, something that, of course, in the beginning is very unnatural. It's very unnatural for somebody to come out of this sort of year after year of bad things happening. It's like, why is this my life? Why did I get here? How come I just can't seem to get ahead? How come my relationships are all toxic? How come I hate my family and my family hates me? It's like, this is a consistent thought process that in the beginning keeps you from believing and thinking new ways. The concept of thinking obviously positively, but also lacing that positivity with a specific energetic outcome. So the answer to your question is 100%. If you, for example, let's unravel the scene bit by bit. I show up at the winery. I, like all nice Canadians, and quite frankly, we're all Canadians. Well, not everybody. If there's others on the call, by the way, thank you. But Canadians are kind of known worldwide, and I've done a lot of traveling in my life, probably significantly more than most people. And I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that to impress upon you. I'm quite worldly in that regard. Been to many, many countries and seen many, many different cultures, and often staying months at a time rather than a week. So the concept of interacting with other cultures, in this particular case here in Prince Edward County, the scene would be I show up, they sit me down to wait 5 or 10 minutes for the table, and as I see them sitting other people, I get peeved, upset, pissed. It's like, oh, the injustice of it all, right? I go up to the owner, it's like, can I speak to the manager? And the manager would give me to the owner, name's Tim, and I, Tim, honest to God, what kind of establishment are you running here? Are you like daft? Like they sat, and that basically would descend into him reacting to my aggression. And I would expect that my drinks at that point would not be free. We probably wouldn't have had any polite conversation. I probably wouldn't have learned anything at all because I'm just in a space of trying to control the outcome of my own personal happiness. So many people look at, well, if this is happening to me, then I must be unhappy. I must be upset. I must be angry. I have to react to this situation because of the unfairness of it all. But what we don't realize is in that state, you are not in a state of acceptance or even enjoyment that good things could happen to you, and therefore they don't. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions, Nancy? So the ESP request box, and who asked the question? Andrew. So the ESP request box is a regular reminder that you have the ability to impact your somewhat predictable outcomes, not the course of actions that you must take or the way things are supposed to be ordered, but the predictable outcome, which is I want to do, be, or have this thing in my life. The ESP request box is a consistent reminder that you have a direct connection to your other energetic self, called your essential silent partner, who seems to know more than you do about how to interact with this world we know as mostly energy. Your essential silent partner is your direct connection to energy. And writing your requests is a much more positive and focused act that you can participate in as often as you like. There is no rule that you couldn't put in 20 requests a day. I typically, though, put in one at a time and watch the universe order itself and start to send me signs that that was a good request, that that was something that the universe is prepared to deliver in its own good time, not my good time, in its own good time, for the highest good of all. And that's the way I look at it. It's like, it's not just happening to me, it's happening to the world around me, including you and all of your That's Ambitious members. These are things we are learning together. The ESP request box is a specific form of communication that allows us to have a direct connection to energy, which therefore can order predictable outcomes. Thank you for the question. Nancy? Okay, so it's been fun. We are slowly approaching the half hour, which is typically the normal time that people have for That's Ambitious. I truly appreciate you hanging out on this holiday Monday. And for those of you that are not in Canada, come here into Canada on this civic holiday, which is essentially the first weekend in August, and have some fun with us. We may just take you to Prince Edward County if you have the time. And with that, Nancy, are there any final questions?
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time. on behalf of Nancy and myself from Prince Edward County, where are we specifically? We are at the Waring House in close to Bloomfield and Picton. So it's not a very large area, although you can definitely get lost here if you don't know where you're going. Anyway, thanks for your time. It's always a pleasure to connect with you even on holidays. So on behalf of Nancy and I, thank you for your time. And that's it for Monday Motivator. We'll see you next time. Bye for now. Hey, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, go subscribe to the channel, and get out there and be ambitious.